Right? This is a great way to start. It's like grounding. Mr. Isaiah Salter.
Tracy Dando. Yeah. Let's do it.
Friend. Oh, I am so grateful that you are here today. You are my first guest. Like, do you realize that?
I am incredibly honored, truly. Thank you so much.
And I feel like the universe created that because I had a whole schedule and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work. Like, I need another day. And I'm like, okay, then we will make that happen.
Yep.
And so there is a reason. And it's probably to calm my nerves because you have a presence about you that you just bring out a part of Tracy that I love. And I love who I am around you. I love what happens between us when we're together. And so I think that's probably why I feel not prepared because I just want the magic to like happen. I remember like sitting in Salt City Market where we're like, I just wish people saw these conversations we had, right? So now we're going to do it.
Cameras around when we're talking right here. Exactly.
So now we're going to do it. So Isaiah, you are the founder of the WAGOS podcast.
Yep.
You are a huge mental health advocate. You are a retired athlete.
Yes.
You have also started something called 365 Grains.
Grains, yeah. 365 Grains, yeah.
Which I want to hear more about.
Okay.
So you're a creator, you're a visionary. You are here to make the world a better place. Like, no doubt in my mind. Am I missing anything?
No,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Blessed. Yep.
So blessed.
Yeah,
well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So you're going through. Actually, let's talk about how we met. Let's start there because
okay.
I do love how you brought it up where, and I'd like you to kind of tell everyone how you saw this. Like you came into my life, we came into each other's lives at a very, unique time. We had both been living in Syracuse. We didn't know of one another. And then all of a sudden we did. And it was so clear. And the way you described that, like, what's your belief around how people come into each other's lives, like at certain times?
Yeah. I think, you meet certain people and you just know, like, yeah, it's meant to be. I'm meant to know this person, And
Right.
I think it was at the VIP Structures event.
Yeah.
I remember, just kind of navigating, connecting with people and things of that nature. And then I kind of saw you and it was just like the energy you were giving off, your presence, it was just very, very radiating. You know what I mean? And it resonated deeply with me. And so I knew by the end of the night there had to be a way for me to like cross paths with you. And so eventually, we did. And yeah, I mean, it was everything that I felt, when we started talking and, we connected. And from there, look at us.
Look at us.
We met so many times. We've had such real and vulnerable conversations, which I think have deepened our connection. You've been on my podcast twice. You know what I mean?
I have. So, thank you for that.
Yeah. So, I think we've just built a great friendship and connection. And it's these type of, relationships that you really have to value and hold dear in your life because they are rare, but in a good way. You know what I mean? They're rare because of how valuable and deep they are. We live in a very surface level world, I think, when it comes to relationships. So, when you find somebody who you can connect with on a deep level, who has also had experiences similar to you, just in different ways, I think, you hit the jackpot. So. Yeah,
I fully agree. And I remember, I think we both speak about vulnerability in such a way that is really important to us because of whatever reasons we've learned that by being vulnerable, it opens doors to the other individual to do the very same thing. And you connect on a level like you just spoke of that is so deep and personal and fulfilling that it's something that I know that I've always like sought. And I talk about how in treatment, it was really the first time I had experienced that type of vulnerability with other people that we were talking about, like the things we had been through and our eating disorders. And this level of like emotional connection that happened, it was just so powerful. And now to be able to recreate that in normal life with my friends is just... it's so fulfilling. I don't really even have words for it.
I feel you. Because you can't, it's hard to describe a a feeling like that. You know what I mean? You can't even put it into words. So yeah, you're right.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So thank you.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
let's dive in.
Yeah, let's do it.
You are now here. What got you here, Isaiah?
Yeah.
You start. What got
Syracuse,
you here?
the Salt City.
Yeah?
Yeah, the Salt
Okay.
City. Yeah. So yeah, if people don't know, it's WAGOS is short for with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because my nickname is Salt, so it works. But what got me here was a multitude of tiny moments and tiny steps, small little experiences, big experiences, the ebbs and flows of the journey. I'll start in the latter half. So I did my undergrad at Adelphi University and then finished my bachelor's there, but I had 2 years of eligibility left for basketball. And so I decided to transfer to Moyne College and finish my master's. And that's kind of when, everything kind of took off as far as like me figuring out who I am and finding this path of doing a podcast and doing content and things of that nature. And what led to that was when I was at Adelphi during COVID, so 2020, 2021, I went through some, very eye-opening experiences around mental health, around, my spiritual journey, my emotional well-being, things of that nature. And, I ended up in the hospital being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and things of that. And in those moments, it was easily like one of the hardest things I ever had to deal with. But, looking back in hindsight, it was those times and those experiences that really pushed me to understand myself, to start asking questions I didn't even know I should be asking myself, like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is purpose? That type of thing. And I truly believe when you start to ask certain questions, what you're doing subconsciously is you're shifting into a lens in which you're trying to find those answers, right? And a lot of people, because they don't ask, certain questions, they don't go down that path or they don't start moving in a way that, they're searching out for those answers. So you can kind of just get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, which I was doing, playing college basketball, going out, having fun, being young, doing all that stuff. And, this experience kind of put me on my back and made me like just look around and see all of these things that were there the whole time that I had just been unaware of. And so I'm like, what are these things, right? And that's the first question. It's like, why are these here? Why didn't I know it? Okay, now I'm scared. I don't know what to do, right? And now you have options. You have a very important decision in those moments where that fear comes up. And I think what a lot of people do is when the fear comes up, it can be so overbearing. You can see all of these things that are lingering, and so you run away. Mm-hmm. You do any and everything to kind of escape that pain, to push it down, to neglect it. Ignorance is bliss. Fortunately and unfortunately, I didn't have that choice to run away because I was in a hospital.
Right.
So I don't have my phone. I don't have social media. I don't have, technology. I don't have social life. I don't have any of that. And so every day I woke up in there, the first of 6 times, every day I woke up in there, it's like, you got to just face these emotions. You have to face these thoughts, and yeah, just sitting with them, day in, day out, you realize that they're not coming up to scare you and to beat you down. They're coming up to provide an opportunity to deepen the relationship you have with yourself, to, start to, heal and shift and align yourself with the highest version of you, and that's really what kind of changed everything. So when I had that epiphany and I kind of came out the other side, I started to find myself through this journey. Then I just made a commitment to myself that I want to start living in a way that's authentic and aligned with the highest version of myself. I don't want to settle. I don't want to, just live a life, doing whatever. No, I want to really pursue this deep, feeling I have connected with deep inside myself, with everything, in my life. And so just pursuing that, I've just seen how things have opened up. And I've just seen how things have opened up, and it's been such a fulfilling and liberating journey. But on the other end, it's been incredibly eye-opening and difficult, you know, in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I can't imagine that many people understood this journey you were on.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be honest.
Yeah.
You were how old when like this really broke?
Yeah, I ended up in the hospital. I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 or 23. I want to say, 22.
So most people's stress
22.
around that time is, you know, maybe first jobs, maybe master's programs. Like you are literally having a massive like awakening, this moment of truly facing yourself and having no options to numb out, to distract, to avoid, to stay away from, which is what primarily we all do. And so you had to sit with yourself and had this crazy awakening. And I can't imagine that many people around you understood what was going on.
No, not at all. And that was really tough too. And I also have compassion for the people that were around me during that time, because I know it wasn't easy on them either. Yeah. You know, I think my situation was the first time for a lot of people experiencing that. So, you know, I always tried to have that perspective and not allow, you know, how certain people, you know, viewed me or started acting differently as like a representation of them just like being hateful or spiteful. They just didn't understand, and neither did I. So it was a mix of that. But yeah, I think that was really tough, because growing up, I've always kind of been a people pleaser, and I've always valued making people feel, you know, good and, you know, keeping the peace with people. But also, I've always valued other people's opinions, and I've also valued being understood, you know? And so when you're going through this awakening and nobody around you can understand, you're not fully understanding, it's a very, very difficult, you know, thing to navigate. And yeah, it's literally just like every day, just taking it that like one day at a time, focusing on where you are, and just trying to make the most out of it. You know what I mean? And not falling into despair. You know, I think that I realized was probably one of the toughest things, but it's also something that I became aware of that other people do. And that's where you lose hope. When you fall into despair, that's where you lose hope. And I think if you lose hope in those moments, that's when you see people kind of never come out the other end. And so I really just try my best to cling on to any little bit of hope I had in those times. And that's all you need sometimes, is that little glimmer of hope, you know, to get you out of those type of situations and to kind of turn a leaf.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I completely understand. I've had people say that like you're really good at finding the smallest of hope in situations, or to reframe things. Like I'm constantly reframing things, right? And I'm like, yeah, I feel like because it sounds like your situation, because of what, like, that's all you had. And it's so easy to lose yourself in the darkness. It's so easy to let yourself live there, stay there, and it will consume you. It will take you down. And we see that, you know, that people lose those little bits that are like, it's kind of like the universe is saying, hold on to this, like ride this wave. And I promise it's going to open. I promise the next thing is going to show its face. But this moment is teaching you something. This moment is, and I can look back at the darkest times of my life and see what those moments taught me. Is like, as horrible as they were, like while you're in it, they all had a reason, you know?
Have you ever experienced like falling into despair, or do you always think like you've been able to keep hope? Because even when you're going through like your situations and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, there was definitely a couple really dark periods of my life. You know, my eating disorder, I looked at it at a time as like the thing that was holding me back and that was keeping me ill, and that was, but ultimately I think it was my lifeline. I think it was what was keeping me safe from relationships, from things that I had experienced in my life that I actually just recently remembered. I think the eating disorder was a way of saying, I'm going to protect you until I know you're ready and you're safe enough to face some of these things. And so, yeah, I was heavily medicated young, because with the depression, that's really all we had. We had meds. And so and especially when you would go into these treatment centers, and I'm not sure if it was the same for you. I mean, it's like you're a trial and error. It's like, okay, we're going to throw you on this and that and this. And it would be like, okay, that didn't work. And I just felt like a zombie in many cases because there were so many meds that they put you on. And part of me looks back at that depression time and there's a very good reason why I was depressed. Yet, instead of me working through that and processing that and really processing why the depression was there, I was really just numbing out for 25 years.
Wow.
I was really, between the level of meds and between everything else, I just kind of numbed all that down. And it wasn't until I went off everything and really started to create other tools like breath work and more somatic practices and getting myself back into my body that I started to like feel and remember. And it's like that stuff would come up in waves and I'd be like, it's like my body knew, like, you're safe now, like you can handle this. But yeah, I definitely had years where I lived in that darkness. Yes. The world wouldn't have known that because I was very practiced.
Right.
You know, the people pleaser, when I was out in the world, I was playing a role, but in the depths of my bedroom or behind closed doors or like, it was dark. It was dark. So no, I appreciate you talking about that. And even I can relate. I was forced to sit in those feelings and those emotions because I was in a treatment center.
Right.
Like, and I never related that part of our stories together, that we were both in those situations. Like, it was like, sort of like we had no other option but to sit in it.
None. No other option but to sit in it. And it's, I think one of the things that I've really like been trying to navigate more and more on my journey, and something that I've realized is like, it's so weird because sometimes I even long to get back into that mindset I was in when I was going through that discovery phase. Like, I was so like, every day my only purpose was to figure out more things about myself, to dive deep, to, you know, journal and to meditate and just sit in those feelings and emotions. It was hard in the moment, but then, you know, as time goes on and you kind of overcome certain seasons and navigate certain seasons and grow and heal and things of that nature, it's almost like, you know, you can get to a place to where a little bit of complacency sets in the sense of, you know, look at everything I've overcome, I'm good now, you know, but like, I've realized growth and evolution, it's a journey, and it's a constant thing you have to keep tending to. And something I've learned is like, you know, I've gotten to certain places where I've looked around in my life, I'm like, all right, yeah, things are good right now. I can chill. Like, I can, you know, kind of just vibe out right now. I can just do what I want to do. And you can kind of get lost in that. You know what I mean? And like I was saying off camera, like allowing certain things to linger that don't align, like, you know, clinging to that comfort of just the safety of where you are. And, you know, for me, like we were talking about self-awareness, like I'm constantly like, you know, analyzing my life and talking to myself and things of that nature. And so there's times where I'm like, man, like I know that should not be a part of my life. I need to, you know, take that next step. I need to really like dive into this area. And then I long for like that mode I was in when I was in the hospital, because like I had no other option, you know. And it's like, how do I get back to that where I'm at now, just in a new way? You know what I mean? And so
yes,
the journey, it's like, you're never done.
No.
You're never done.
You're constantly, and this is also what we were talking about off camera. It's like you get to a place of comfort, and then there's one more layer that starts to peel. And you're like, God, I just got here. Like, come on. Like, give me a break for just 6 months.
That's
give me
good.
6 months,
yeah,
please.
Right.
And it's like, no, here's the next step.
Yeah.
And this is what we signed up for. Like, I truly believe that there are certain people that signed up for this constant growth, this constant uncomfortableness that sets in. And like, by the time this airs, I mean, everything will be out with Safe Space. Like, I there was such a comfort in knowing that safe space was my forever future. Like,
Oh, man.
And then for me to get these hits of being like, no, it's time to let it go. Like, I was like, there's no way, because my mind had set up this future that was completely BS, right? That was completely a fairy tale, like, but it made so much sense to me.
Yes.
And the universe or whomever is like, no, we're going this way now. And you're like, no. And I think what you're saying, like, you're holding on to these pieces of things that are providing comfort, yet are like clearly over. And it's like, why do we do that? Why do we hold on to those things that we know in our soul of souls that we're done with, yet we can't seem to fully let go of?
It's almost like, because I think it could be a multitude of things, but some things we hold on to, like, they're not bad things.
No.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like your ego's like, why are we letting this go? This provides safety. It's comfortable. I know, what to expect in this. Why are we letting this go? It's not like it's a bad thing, And then you have the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, yeah, it's just things that the old version of you used to cling to, and they're kind of just distracting you from focusing on what you need to, do. But I don't know. I think it's a constant battle between, spirit and ego, within yourself. And the framing that I like to take with this that has helped me kind of understand what's going on when I'm feeling different things, I'm being pulled this way, pulled that way, is like, I'm the awareness behind, the two angels on my shoulder, the spirit and the ego, and I think following your heart and, aligning yourself with the highest version of you is following your spirit. It's allowing your spirit to be the driving force of your life, right? You still need ego to operate in the physical reality, but you allow spirit to be the parent to your ego, right? And then you have moments where the ego gets a little, a little antsy, and it wants to do this, it wants to do that, it wants to attach itself to people, places, things, identities, things of that nature. And it's just a constant internal battle of like, ego, like, listen, like, you gotta like go to the side. We still need you because you're a part of us, but we have to be led by spirit. Because if we allow you to, kind of just take over and direct our life, we're gonna end up in places that we don't need to be. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the saying, like, dying to your flesh means. It's really about, cutting off the urges and the desires of your ego daily. You know what I mean? Your ego craves comfort. Your ego craves control. Your ego craves safety.
Yes.
Right? All of those things that are contrary to following your spirit. When you follow, your heart, you follow the pull from the highest version of yourself. You have to be willing to lean into the unknown. You have to be willing to let go of control. You have to be willing to act with that sense of fear, And so all of those things are the exact opposite of the safety, of the control, of the comfort. You have to be willing to embrace discomfort, And so it's just an internal battle. You reach certain places, and like you said, you want to rest. I just want to be here for a little bit, And rest is important. You should do that. But when it's time to evolve and grow and your soul is asking to take that next step, we have to do that, And that's something that resonates so deeply right now with my life because, I just feel like, with me transitioning, I'm about to move, all of these things, like, I think I've just allowed certain things to linger in my life, certain perspectives to linger in my life. And, my being is like, I'm ready to really evolve out of that, And the longer you neglect your intuition, the longer you neglect following your heart, the longer you neglect that pull from, your spirit and your soul, the more that internal restriction and internal frustration compounds, and it gets to a place where it could be so overbearing and so incredibly difficult to navigate. And I think that's really what I'm experiencing in the moment, truly.
It's interesting how that shows up differently in each and every one of us. And it's really learning that internal dialogue. Like, what are the signs that show up within you that it's time to be pivoting, to be stopping something, to be starting something, to be resting, to, what are those signs? And I know for me, like, burnout is a big sign. And my body starts to like literally shut down. Like, and there are certain signs that start to come up that I'm like, okay, like this is telling me something. As much as my ego has created a whole another narrative, this is telling me something. And it's learning to trust those signs sooner rather than later. I'm getting better at that, but still not great. And being like, okay, it's time to pivot. But I think what's scary is like, pivoting and not knowing what that next step is. And I just listened to a podcast by Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty, which just adore the two of them. And it's actually the safety is in knowing the next step. The ego needs to know what the next step is, right? Where really we need to be jumping and allowing the next step to show itself at that point. It's like, but that's trust. That's so much, like, that's a whole hell of a lot of trust right there.
Yes.
To be like, especially when you have responsibilities and you're an adult and you have, like, you're expecting me to jump and not know what's next. Yet I've learned that I actually get excited about it now. I'm like, okay, what's coming? Like, what's coming next? Like, show me, universe. Like, surprise me. But I'm also slightly terrified. I mean, I'll be honest. Like you said, it's like the two talking.
Angels.
Angels.
Or, angel and the devil. That's
whatever, however you want to look at it.
However you want to look at it. But that's so real. Yeah, that's so real. I think a lot of people have ego-based, fear-based beliefs, right? And so real faith, it's that. It's not knowing the next step and taking it. And I think when you get to a place of such strong conviction that I know if I follow, my heart and I really take this step, things are going to work out. I mean, you're golden. And I think in the book, The Alchemist, when you have a dream,
great book.
The whole universe conspires to help you achieve it. You know what I mean? And so when you have a dream, you have to follow it. And that's how the universe will help you, achieve it. But you can't have a vision or have a pull or, want to do something and just stay in your comfort zone. That's not how it works because you're going against, the pull. You're going against the path. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And each one of those stages is asking you to grow in a different way.
Yes.
It might be asking you to learn a new skill or to heal something, or it might be that grace period where everything is wonderful for, 30 days, or, it might be a really challenging time where you're questioning everything. But each one of those steps is there for a reason. It's trusting in that process. And, that is something that I continue to go back to as life has thrown things at me. You have a decision. You have a decision with every one of those moments. You can fall into more of a victim mentality and be like, why is this happening to me again? What am I, I'm always, this is always happening. You can go into that role, or you can be like, okay, so this is showing up to teach me something, to show me something, to pause me for a little bit. One of these reasons, something, right? And I don't know what that is yet. And at some point I will know, probably down the road, it'll all make sense. But I'm here to endure it and to be in it and trust that I have the tools to get myself through it and the people around me, and that it's all coming for a reason. And I think so many people refuse to see the repeated patterns in their life that continue to show up. And that pattern is showing up over and over for a really good reason. It's asking you to look it straight in the face and be like, what am I trying to learn here? What am I repeating in my life that needs to stop? What am I supposed to be healing? What am I supposed to be feeling? And instead we fall more into this role of, why does this keep happening to me?
Yes. Yeah, that resonates.
Yeah.
It resonates.
But I remember always being like, I literally had to be hit by a car for some things to finally set in. I literally was hit by a car because that was early on in my life. I had to be slapped in the face so many times with the same thing for me to finally wake up. And I actually believe getting hit by a car saved my life in many ways. So I see these moments, as horrific as they were, as redirections,
Yes.
as moments
Yes.
of like, all right, because I questioned why I survived a lot of the thing. Why I know a lot of people that died from an eating disorder. Like I've lost so many people in that community, and I questioned why. Why am I still here? Everything I did to myself. Why? And I still don't have that answer, and I don't know if, but I am, and I better be doing something because I am still here. I better be giving back. I better be using my life for a reason because I am still here.
Yeah.
So I think it's all the way we frame it, all the way we look at it.
Perspective is everything.
Yes.
Perspective is everything. And that those moments where, you know, you get hit by a car or you get hit by a car or we're laughing.
I love that we're just using
Yeah,
that.
I know.
You know those moments when you get hit.
Okay. All right. So like, all right. Those moments where it's like, yeah, like life impacting moments. Those ones.
Right.
I'm in the hospital, that type of stuff. Those moments really shift your perspective on life. You know what I mean? They get you to look at things from a different perspective and a different, you know, lens. And that's why it could be so incredibly profound later down the line, because when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so many people, it's not the experiences that end up impacting them negatively. It's their perspective on the experiences, you know? And so if we can get people, which is like a big push, you know, take life with a grain of salt, take every experience with a grain of salt. That's something that I'm so incredibly passionate about, because I've seen how just a slight perspective shift on a certain situation can change the whole situation as a whole. Literally.
Yeah.
I would not be sitting here right now in Syracuse, New York on your podcast if I did not go into the psychiatric hospital 6 times. I would not be here, because what would have happened was I would have kept doing what I'm doing. And I'm speaking, you know, hypothetically, because obviously I don't know exactly what happened. But I do know this. I would have kept doing what I was doing, going through the motions, smoking, having fun, playing basketball, being a college athlete, all that stuff. And I would have stayed at Adelphi for the rest of my college career. I would have never left, because that's kind of why I had to end up leaving, because of the mental health stuff. I would have just stayed there. I was comfortable there. It was a nice school. It was a nice area. And I just would have been chilling. I would not have came to Moyne College in Syracuse, New York, got the nickname Salt, built a podcast called With a Grain of Salt, and be doing all this stuff, right? And so those moments can be so incredibly profound for your perspective, because then now it's like everything that I go through, everything that I face, I'm looking at it through the perspective that this is happening for me. It's not happening to me. It's not happening at me. It's happening for me, right? And so I think that in itself could change people's lives, just 100%. Your perspective.
It's a massive shift.
Yes.
And once you start to see your life through that lens instead of the alternative, everything changes.
Yes.
Everything changes. You find joy in the smallest of moments. You find happiness in the like, it's amazing what a sunset now feels like. Like, it's just so simple. It's all so simple. And so it's crazy how, because I think so many of us get stuck living in our story, get stuck living in what happened to us.
Come on.
We all have a story. We all have been through trauma. We all have had experiences in life that have greatly shifted and shaped our personalities and who we are. And so much is realizing that and growing from that. And so everything I hear, it's like that fire, all of that information, all of that stuff you've learned from that time period of life literally sent you in this trajectory to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we should be focusing on. Like, your story got you there. It started that like fire. It opened you up to all these beliefs. But it does not define you. It does not. It's not who Isaiah is.
No, we define the experiences, not the other way around. And it goes into so I don't know what Marvel movie it is, but they start to get into the idea of alternative realities, alternate realities, things of that nature, different timelines, different all these different things, right? And so I like to think of it like, you know, your soul is central, and your soul has an infinite amount of different possibilities and experiences and paths it can go down, right? And the intuition we feel, the pull we feel to, take that leap or, move to this place or do that thing, right?
Yeah.
That thing that brings us the most fear. I think that's the highest version of ourself on the highest timeline or highest, path, calling out to us to experience that. Like that ultimate path is where, the fulfillment lies, the peace lies, like where we're operating in our authentic and aligned self. And so I think every single season, every single experience, you have an opportunity to use it to align with that path, right? And so I think life is always going to give you that gift of an opportunity to align yourself, right? We may not view it that way. We may view it as, why is my life so incredibly difficult? Why is, things never working out? Why do I feel like, I can never catch a break? But in actuality, what if every single one of those experiences was just trying, the universe or your soul or your spirit just trying to get you to go inward, to start living more authentically, to start living more aligned, and that to me, like, it shifts everything, and that's why people prolong it, because it's like your soul is never going to stop calling out for you to really connect with the highest version of yourself. That's never going to stop happening. And so the longer you don't do that, the longer you are neglecting your truth and your authentic self, and the longer, you're going to keep going through experiences and different things that's trying to get you to tap into that thing. But because you don't realize that's what's happening, you just think, I'm just suffering. My life is miserable, right? Things just don't work out in my favor. No, I promise you, every single experience and situation you go through, excuse me, is there because not only God, the universe, wants that for you, the world needs that. The world needs the most authentic version of each and every person. And so I think it's a gift to have the ability in every moment to actually take a step towards aligning ourselves, and so that's what perspective can do, tying in that
100%.
Yeah.
But as humans, we want community, right?
Yeah.
We want to fit in. We want to align with what everybody else is doing. We don't want to be speaking out of the pack. We don't, because there is fear in isolation.
Yeah.
I mean, our nervous systems are still completely aligned with back when we were running away from tigers, right? So that we are meant to be in packs, which means we're going to agree with whatever that pack is doing. And we lose this authenticity. And I think for so much, my story, like, that I've always felt a pull to share my story. And my ego tells me it's because you want to be seen, Tracy, or there's a reason you want to put your story out there. And my authentic self knows that it's because my story, I know, can greatly impact other people. I know that there's a reason that I went through what I went through. And I know that it can impact, especially like the recovery and some of the abuse. And like, I know it can help other women and men. And so like, I have these two parts of myself that are constantly fighting, yet it's like my biggest fears are holding me back from, I know what my soul's mission on this planet is to do, and it's to use my voice. Yet safety is not using my voice. Safety is staying small. Safety is, because if you stay small, the opportunity of getting hurt is much less, right?
That's really good.
And so I see how these two parts of me are constantly fighting. No, stay safe, Tracy. Stay small. Don't say what you actually want to say, because that's going to gain attention, and there's chance for danger at that point. And like, I can see how it's this constant fight of these two parts within me. And so I know how I have learned to navigate this is like I dip my toe into it, right? Like, I'm terrified of using my voice, yet the thing that lights me on fire is a microphone and stepping on a stage, right? So I'm like, how did these two things align? Yeah. And it's because I know what I'm supposed to be doing, yet I also know that I still live in fear of doing that.
Come on.
And so it's like dipping your toe, and that's kind of what this next question was for you. Like, you're being called in a certain way. how do people do that? How do you recommend people do that in a way that still feels safe, right? Still lets their ego have some control, yet starts them on that path of realignment?
That's tough. Yeah, that's a really good question. The first thing is shifting your perspective on fear. I mentioned this at the panel that we were on, which was fun to do with you. But yeah, I think fear is a guide, right? And I think the highest version of ourselves, the best possible outcome for us, the most authentic, aligned version of ourselves is constantly calling out to us, like I said. Because your ego craves that security, that safety, because it uses the five senses to operate, so it's looking for tangible things to be like, oh, that's it. Whenever you're about to take a step into a direction of following your heart, starting that business, starting that podcast, doing the thing that you've been longing to do. What's going to come up, what the ego is going to do to protect yourself, to protect itself in that comfort and safety, it's going to bring up anxiety, fear, doubt, what else? Lack of confidence, all of those things, right? And being able to understand that those things aren't coming up because this isn't the right path to go down. They're just coming up because I'm about to step into the unknown, and my ego does not want that. I am about to do something that is against the grain of everything that I've been doing before, and my ego does not want that. I'm literally about to let go of the control that I've been able to create in my life and step into surrendering to the flow. Yes. The ego does not want that, right? And so it's like a kid. That's how I love to view my ego. It's like a little kid. When you keep when a kid comes to you and is like, Mom or Dad, I want a cookie. You know what I mean? You give it one cookie, right? The kid wants to have the whole box of cookies, but it's not healthy or it's not right for that kid to have a whole box of cookies. Kid starts crying. You gotta parent that child and be, hey, you have to trust me. Right? We can have a cookie tomorrow, but we can't have the whole box of cookies, right? And the babies or the kids throwing a fit, all of that type of stuff. But eventually it calms down, and as it grows, it understands what you were doing in that moment. It's the same when you're about to take that leap, you're about to follow your heart, and all of these things come up. Your ego's like, no, why are we doing this? And you're like, hey, I feel you. I hear you. Trust me. Everything's going to be okay. And then you take the leap and things work out. Now your ego has a tangible thing it can see that, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Okay, cool. And that's how over time, the fear that once used to kind of block you and control you so much turns into more of like that excitement, that more, let's see what's on the other side, because you've allowed yourself to feel those things, still do the thing, and now your ego sees physical evidence of you moving through the fear and things still working out. You letting go of control and things still working out. You stepping into the unknown and things working out in ways that you couldn't imagine. Now your ego's like, all right, man, let's do it. And now that's where your life will change. That's when you see people, man, I don't know how they do it. They just look like they're constantly, taking leaps of faith. They're so courageous, so brave. They've just taken steps so many times to the direction of the fear and the anxiety and the pushback that now it's at a place where they understand what it is and their ego understands what it is. So now it looks effortless for them, right? But when we look at them, we're starting from ground zero. So it could be so discouraging to see that, but you have to understand that they were once where you were. They just decided to act out of what you're feeling in that moment. Hope that.
Yes, 100%. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I hope that answers.
I think it absolutely does. And that's how I see my ego too, as like a small child. And it's very similar to the eating disorder voice. When I work with clients, the eating disorder voice developed at the point that the eating disorder developed, which usually is a much younger part. Right. And so the fear and the things it's saying, it's very close to like an ego. It's trying to keep them safe. And it looks at food or whatever rules it's making is not safe, right? And so it's very similar, and you have to like reparent this part. Yes. But in a way, you have to expect it's going to come up. Like I expect it to be there. And so that's the same way. It's like once you have the awareness, like, yeah, I know that like fear is going to get triggered. Anxiety is going to get triggered. All the stories are going to start, all of them, of why I can't do this, why I'm not qualified for this. Like we know this dialogue. We've been hearing it for 40 years, right? Like, so once you know that and you're like, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that takes time, trial and error. It takes dipping the toe in, sort of like I'm going to take the first step and know that it's not all figured out. And I'm just going to trust that it's going to start to align itself.
That's
like
it.
This is the path for me.
Come on.
But yeah, it's difficult.
Yes.
I mean, like you said, you're in a period of transition. I'm in a period of transition.
Yep.
And when you're in this in-between phase of who you were and not quite to the next step, you're in this like gray area of it's like a groundlessness feeling where you're like, this doesn't feel right yet, but I can't go back.
Right.
Like, and so you're in this place of just like, okay, so I'm just like here. And it's like, I'm holding on to trust. Like that's where I'm at right now.
Come on. That's so good. Yeah, you're hitting. I think another thing too is the idea of identity and how much identity plays a role in like keeping you stuck in things, you know?
Huge.
Yeah, because your ego, in order to create that safety, it has to latch onto an identity, right? Because then now things are predictable. I don't think people understand the severity and the profoundness of that concept and how much that plays a role in our life and in every area. I'm talking every area. We attach ourselves to a certain identity, and that identity creates a box. And any step outside of that box is going to cause all of those things we just talked about, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the doubt, right? All that, the it ain't gonna work, the pessimism, all that stuff. And so one of the toughest things is being able to have the courage to step outside of that box and to let go of that box as a whole, to let go of that identity. That's one of the hardest things to do. And this can apply to any area in our life, like relationally, socially, religion, anything, spirituality, like a career. Like we create identities and we become attached to those identities because your ego thrives on attachment. Your spirit thrives on connection. It's a totally different thing. Connection allows things to come in and go out gracefully. Attachment is things come in, we attach ourselves to our identity, and now we create an internal dam.
Yep.
Nothing else can come in, and we're not letting go of this thing to create that flow. So we're blocking out more blessings, more opportunities, more connections, more relationships from coming in. And we're keeping things that no longer serve us, no longer are aligned with the highest version of ourselves. And then we wonder why we're discontent.
Right.
We wonder why we're, not happy. We wonder why we have so much internal struggle, and it was, I was watching the Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the idea of chakras.
Yep.
So you have energy chakras in you, like this is going off of the show. And so what Aang had to do, the main character, the Avatar, what he had to do in order to operate and tap into the Avatar state where he lights up and he's able to, have full power was he had to clear his energy chakras, right? Because he had a lot of energy blockages within himself. This applies to our real life. We are energetic beings, right? Emotions are energy in motion, right? And so what happens a lot of times is whenever we have experiences, whenever we go through certain things, relationships, whatever it may be, those things create emotional ties to those. We have emotional ties to those things. And on top of that, we're constantly having, different energy and motion happening in our body. And so whenever you're not allowing that energy to flow, that's what creates like that internal restriction, that internal like gunk, if that makes sense. And if you lock if you lock a mouse inside of a little box and it realizes it's in that box, it's going to do every and anything to get out of that box. It's going to start scratching the walls, making sounds, all of that stuff. How many of us feel like that is what is happening in our minds and in our body? It's just constant chaos, a constant like, busyness and messiness and just so much stuff going on. We can't really get clear-minded. We feel like there's so much going on within ourselves. That is so much suppressed and unreleased energy going on within you. And being able to really, really open up and allow that energy to flow, you will feel a massive change. But a lot of that ties into the idea of having such a strong attachment to our identity. We get so attached to all of these things that it closes our heart, and it keeps us there, because now that we're closed, we can predict, we're in control, we're safe. We're really not safe, because the safest route is really the most authentic route. And all of that stuff just gets pushed in. It just gets pushed in. And so, yeah, it's like, yeah, you just get, I don't really know how I'm going to tie that back in, but identity,
I can align, I can relate to so much of that. And I'm sure so many people can, because we are taught at such a young age, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, man.
And it's like, I remember I couldn't make a decision. I remember so many people being like, you should be a teacher. You're really good with kids. And I was really good at caretaking, which is why I was good at kids. I was good at taking care of other people. And because I couldn't take care of myself, to tell you the honest truth.
Empath.
Yes. Very empathetic. And so I was definitely attracted more to younger. Yet I also found that the chaos of young children would drain me very easily, quickly, because I had no control over any of this at one point in time. And so I didn't know what I wanted to be. I mean, I went to be a teacher. I went down the nutrition route because of the eating disorder, but I never felt like I fit into a box. Like, I'm like, I just want to know who I am. I just want to know, right? Everybody else seems to know what they are. And so we see that now, like, that educator part of Tracy comes out when I speak. It came out through the creation of Safe Space. Like, we take those tools that we learn and we apply them to the next phase of our lives, but they aren't who we are. Right? Like, we are a plethora of things. I am a mom. I am a friend. I am a community advocate. We have a plethora of names that we are, and identities. And I think when we hold on too tight to an identity, and I think we see that in the mental health world, like, no, I'm ADHD, I have depression and anxiety, and I have, yes, we have all those things. Like, we have all those things. We are a melting pot of mental health, classifications, but
this is deep.
I feel like we hold on to those to explain why we are the way we are, instead of going in and feeling and attaching to that depression, to those emotions, and letting them move through. And instead, we're like, no, I'm going to hold on to this identity because this is all I got. This is all I got. This explains why I am the way I am. And yes, it does. But the next step is to process that part of it.
Come on.
And so I went through like 3 years of, I was crying every day. And it was a part I hid because I was embarrassed to show the world that much emotion was moving through me. Yet after I went off all of the meds, and it was just like waves of emotion that had been so pushed down and suppressed for years. Like, I didn't even know where it was coming from. And my mind couldn't make sense of what the experience was, and I'm like, I'm going to stop trying to attach what this emotion is, and I'm just going to let it move through me, because this is like the clearing, right?
Come on.
But we also don't, like, emotion is a thing, right? We're supposed to be seen and not heard as children. We're supposed to shut it down. We're taught that. And now all of a sudden we're trying to reverse that process, which is hard work.
Who you telling?
I know.
No. You're right. You could say that again. That's what I meant to say. Now, who you telling with that?
Yeah.
What you just said was so profound about the identity. I think it's Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah,
you know him. He's great, but he talks about that, and a lot of other people talk about it. But yeah, you can become so attached to an identity to where even the things that are going on, or the things that come from being attached to that identity, like, they can be hurting you. It can be incredibly harmful, but at least you know, and that the comfort of knowing is better than the discomfort of letting go.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of people struggle with. So yeah, staying here is painful, but at least I know the outcomes. At least I know what's going to happen, right? At least I know the type of man or woman I'm going to attract into my life. At least I know the, experiences that I'm going to go through and how I'm going to react. At least I know. Even though it's painful, at least I know. And knowing is better than not knowing.
Yes.
Knowing is better than letting go, and that right there, that's a very, very tough thing that a lot of people, face and have to navigate in their life.
Yeah. That's why people stay in addictive cycles, with alcohol and drugs and relationships, because at least they know, like, I'm really good at being the bad guy. I'm really good at playing this role because I at least know what the outcome's going to be. And it's like destructive in so many ways, but they hold on to that being like, but I've done this so many times, I can predict the outcome. You're asking me to go this route where I have no idea what that feels like or looks like. Like, it is much easier to stay in this chaos that I have known my whole life than choose an alternate path. And that's where you see people continue to tear down their lives and tear down their relationships, and because they're so scared of choosing that other path.
And this is why this is why people don't change for other people. They only change for themselves. Yeah. And this is what's so difficult when, and I know you can attest to this, when you kind of awaken and realize like all of these things are going on within yourself and around you, and you start to go down the path of healing and growing and shifting. You want everybody you love and care about to do the same, but I've realized that you can't force people to change. And something I've also seen is like, I've seen how when you try to tell somebody something or explain something to them or give some advice, you see their attachment to that identity kind of like fight that off. You see their ego be like, get like, offended a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't understand. Like, I am this way. I am that. I have this. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, like those attachments to that identity will really like block you from being able to really like step into the best version of yourself, to really overcome certain things in your life. And I know it's tough. We live in a society where like everything around us is literally programmed to make us do that, to make us identify with certain things, to make us attached to certain things, to make us constantly be on the move, to constantly, be consuming something, to constantly be distracted by everything going on, to be put in a state of fear, to be put in a state of guilt and shame. Like all of these things around us are literally programmed to make us do that. That's what the idea of breaking free from the matrix is. It's literally stepping out of the confines that society has created and saying, hold on, I don't want to accept this doctrination. I don't want to accept this way of living. And that it's just so incredibly tough for so many people. And that's what makes you feel like you're alone in it, because there's not a lot of people doing that. And I think that's what's so powerful about people like you were talking about, Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty, using their platform to help people, break free from that conditioning and programming that has been placed on them and start living for themselves. Using our platforms to help shed some light on it. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just think that is so incredibly difficult for a lot of people to navigate, myself included. But it's one of those things where when you see the other side, like, you're never going to go back. Right. Why would you ever in a million years go back to living in a pitch black tunnel when you have finally came out the other end and see the sunlight in the flowers and the beautiful grass? You would never. You won't. So, it's a very tough thing to navigate. But if we just keep on, keeping the intention there and being the change you want to see in the world, I think that in itself will create a ripple effect that the whole
I fully agree.
People can feel.
I fully agree.
Yeah. So
you are transitioning and leaving Syracuse.
Yeah.
I do think we will see you again, but
for sure.
What is, as we close, what is What is something you want to leave Syracuse with?
A thank you.
Aw.
Yeah, a thank you for sure. I think Syracuse has profoundly impacted my life, like profoundly impacted my life in ways that I'll forever be grateful for. But I think, like you said, I'll be back. You know, once you make connections like this, like I've made in Syracuse, I can always come back, and I always have, you know, a home here. And so I'm grateful for that. I just think I always knew deep down, like I wasn't going to live here long term. It really comes down to the weather. Like I'm just like, everybody has their place. I'm a hot and sunny guy. That's just me. I like the sun. So I like good weather. And so I kind of knew that, but yeah, this place is incredibly special. The people I've met, the connections I've been able to create, the opportunities that have, you know, came up in my life like this, you know, sitting here. I don't take it for granted, and I'm just so incredibly, you know, grateful and blessed. And I'm definitely scared leaving, you know what I mean? But in a good way. You know, I'm excited, and I'm ready to kind of take that next step and just keep evolving in my journey and following my heart for sure. So, yeah.
We are so excited to see what happens.
Vice versa.
We are so excited.
I'm so excited to watch your life unfold.
I'm cheering you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I'm cheering you on. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Tracy.
Love this conversation.
Yeah, me too.